Hello and welcome to my channel. So this is going to be a little bit of story time and a little sneak peek of what I'm going to be painting. So without further ado, let's get into it. So this is a story about probably the worst time that I had at Comic-Con, and this is Grand Rapids Comic-Con in Michigan. It's a little bit of a smaller one, but it's closer to where I live, so it's very accessible for me. Anyway, so Comic-Con was really awesome. There was so many good things. I had such a blast with going through all of the different booths, as well as I ended up going into like all the panels that were about actually making comic books, as well with like some novel writing, and I was enjoying it. I mean, the first day, the first panel we went to, it was only me and my boyfriend that showed up, and it was so awesome because basically the panelist just said, okay, you're here. How about we just do it, whatever you want to ask me? And so I just started asking questions, and it was so fantastic. So that was really awesome, but we're going to talk about the not good time, the one that ended up making me absolutely miserable, that I had to go home and do a bunch of self-care. So Comic-Con is often very crowded. We ended up getting a 3-day pass because there were so many panels that we wanted to listen to, and so many different things going on. So we got a 3-day pass, both of us, and the first day wasn't too crowded. It was Friday, people are working, kids are in school, yada yada yada. Well, second day, it was noticeably a lot more people. I ended up not being able to see like my own state of being very well, just because there was so much going on. And now when I say my state of being, not being able to see it, it'll make sense in a little bit. So there's tons of people, lots of noises, lots of lights, a lot of sensory input. And one thing you need to know about me, that I am autistic. So I had a point in which I was separate from my boyfriend. I go into the main area for a little bit, and I'm just taking a little bit of a break since he's not with me. And one thing that's really helping for sensory regulating is actually having him with me, because I can easily just squeeze onto his hand and no one can tell. Anyway, I stepped out and I am just looking around. It's not bad, and I actually saw someone have sensory what is that word? Sensory overload, have a meltdown, and I just saw this person and I just felt for them, and I was like, oh, that's awful. They barely could get out of there. And that was foreshadowing, because let me tell you, a couple hours later, I was having the same issue. I will say that person, I didn't approach them at the time. I happened to see them walk by like an hour later, and I tried to offer one of my fidgets. I was trying to be discreet, but I could see they might have been embarrassed. So if that person ever watches this, know that I just wanted to help because I could empathize. And well, about an hour after that, I ended up having the same thing. So I wanted to sort of describe what this is like. And so what ended up happening was I had an incident earlier in the day in which there was a dialect from Doctor Who right next to a silence. And no matter how many times I told myself they were just people, the costumes and the props were so good that I ended up having like real panic, and I managed to stay calm and get away from them. And our little painting here would be fighting against them, with the doctor because this is canine and I love canine, and there was a canine, and all of a sudden I turned around earlier in the day and I saw canine because I hadn't seen it coming. I was looking at a booth and all of a sudden canine was there, and I actually started crying because I was so happy to see canine. So canine was there earlier in my day, and I was wishing it was here to rescue me from this dialect and the silence. But anyway, so that panic started. I am very susceptible to noise and visual stuff. Smell doesn't bother me so much because my brain often gets overloaded by sound and visuals to the point where my brain can't process smells some days. So, a genuine fear of these people going around, a lot of people going around, so many things, I started getting a little irritable. Now, this is a warning sign, and it's a very subtle warning sign, especially when you've been masking for so many years like I have. I can mask this warning sign. So my boyfriend who was with me didn't quite tell that I was getting irritable. And so we're just still going through all the booths, looking around at all the different cool things. And we get to this one booth, and this one booth had all these pins, and I love pins. So I wanted to look at all of them. But there's this light shining on them, and this light ended up just hurting, and it was painful, and like the spotlight was on the pins, but any extra light coming off of it was just like I was looking directly into the sun when I was standing next to the sun. It hurt that bad, and I just, for some reason, still wasn't getting a hint. Kept on continuing, and then all the noises started getting worse, and I felt like everything was closing in on me. And when I say noises were getting worse, when I have sensory overload, noises almost feels like stabbing in my ears. It's very uncomfortable. I really do not like that, and there's a lot of things that can trigger it, so I've had to deal with it. So as everything is closing in on me, I'm feeling claustrophobic. The panic is starting. It almost feels like a panic attack, but it's slightly different for me at least. And so I basically wanted to run out of there. And at one point, I almost tried to scream, just trying to release any tension. And basically when I finally got out of there, I just had my boyfriend squeeze me, and that squeezing pressure was something that was trying to help me regulate. So I had him squeeze me as well as I was squeezing him. And one of the most disrespectful things that sometimes can happen is people are looking. And I did mention that I happened to see someone else have sensory overload and have a meltdown earlier in that day. I wasn't staring at them. I could just see the signs for like 2 seconds, and then I actually was looking around at other people, making sure there wasn't anyone staring. But when I was having my sensory overload and my meltdown, I had a lot of people looking at me, and it felt really embarrassing because it had been like a half year since I stopped masking and really was trying to give myself self-care. So basically, sensory overload just feels claustrophobic, especially for me, and how people deal with it are very different. And it's not a fun experience, and it can come on gradually like it did for this Comic-Con day, or it can hit you really fast. And especially when it hits you fast, I've had that happen. I felt like an entire building was collapsing on top of me, and it did not end well that day. So I just wanted to give that insight of that's what a sensory meltdown feels like. Here's my little canine, and I think it's absolutely adorable. And if you enjoyed this story today, I'm going to be doing more mixed in with a couple other things coming up, as well as some bigger pieces. I still have to figure out how I'm going to film them because some of them might be bigger than my actual filming area, but I hope to at least do a couple little bigger pieces. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the story. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing, and I appreciate you watching to the end. I really love doing this, and I want to keep doing it, so hopefully you'll come along for the ride. Also check out, I have a lot of shorts that I've been putting up almost daily, and yeah, a lot of fun things that are going to be coming up. And again, I really hope you enjoyed it. Have a bat-tastic day. Bye.